Welcome. This is the Global Summit House podcast. Catch power interviews and discussions with influential, inspiring, and powerful people. Explore what's possible by tuning into this podcast with our all-new The Writers Project episodes, featuring one of the world's most inspired thinkers and writers. Visit our website at www.globalsummithouse.com.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast world, those who are coming across this wonderful recording here for the very first time, or maybe revisiting. Thank you, and I want to just shortly introduce someone that I'm highly pleasured in being able to talk to today. Someone who's going to be a great inspiration to many of you as she tells you about her journey in creating the works TilBreathUsDoPart / intermissions. Julia Cooke is who I'm on the phone with today. Julia, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, outstanding. Do share with us, I know I said a few things in the introduction, but, in your own words, can you just give us a short introduction into who you are?
I certainly would be delighted to do that. I was born in a family that was abusive, and I overcame many obstacles, which a lot of children are not able to do. I actually built techniques and methods just in those coping skills that I had to develop. I went on to graduate from Morehead State University with a double major and a minor and a teacher's fifth year for the state of Kentucky. And I taught high school for 18 years. I helped start a Bible college in Huntington, West Virginia with the church we attended at that time, and became the provost and the vice president of that, as well as just a normal instructor, and started some ladies' ministries. I am ordained, and through Pastor Hargrove, who's in Nashville, Tennessee. Then I went on to do, as I lived my life with my children and my husband, Michael, I went on to venture out and do some things that I never thought I would ever be led to do, such as in developing ministries for women in churches and beyond, because we go to church, but we don't live in the church.
Yes. And
there has to be a personal connection between who I believe is the Lord, and the entrance of His Word gives light. And so as I began to study more and more the Bible and look at it for a personal use as my personal glasses, so to speak, I gained a lot of insight into life, was able to forgive my parents and move on, and quite handsomely did with my husband and my children. I've had a very successful, very, very good life, very intense life with many challenges, but who hasn't? Right. We all have challenges, and we see, certainly if you watch the news today, we see the beginning, the middle, and the ending of several challenges that are affecting the whole world, with the hurricane and so forth. And you just have to be, I believe, as my philosophy, you have to be mentally prepared no matter what knocks on your door that day. You have to have a basis of keeping your soul, your intellect, your will, and your emotions intact and nurturing them every single day, so that when these things happen in our life, and some of them can be a cancerous report. I've had cancer 7 times in my life. I have overcome each one of them with the aid of doctors and with my faith that the Lord has given me and His promise that He will never leave or forsake me. And I take Him at His word. I've not seen Him face to face yet, but I have been to the point where that was the prognosis, and I had to keep my soul well maintained before that actually happened, during the times it was being challenged, and then afterward, knowing that no life is perfect here on this earth, and we all have challenges, and we need to keep our soul grounded and well maintained. around the principles of life, of love, of forgiveness.
Right.
And that gives you a strength in your mind and in your soul, which I believe, and there are Greek words to prove that the soul is the intellect, the will, and our emotions. And I know a lot of us can do really well in our intellect and in our will. It's called willpower. But when it comes to emotions, we kind of hesitate in which direction to flow. A lot of times we get angry when we should be compassionate. We become vocal when we should be quiet. And it takes a certain amount of training in your own soul to face these challenges and look at them in perspective to where they are and where you are, and knowing that things can change. At any moment. We're used to that in our lives, but we don't expect it. And I don't expect things to happen to challenge me or my life, but I know that it happens. If you're living in this world, if you're taking a journey in your life, you have to kind of plan out where you want to stop and what are you going to do if you make a plan to stop at a certain place and it's closed, or you make a plan to get gas somewhere and you can't find it. You have to have some kind of an alternative basis to fall to. You have to have some sort of protocol within your own mind. Otherwise, you're letting things happen that probably could be contained somewhat.
Yes.
And instead of facing the challenge truly as it is, we go off on the deep end, or we just lose control and fear overtakes us. And I think we're seeing a lot of fear in our news broadcasting and in life. And if people could maintain some sort of a self-control based not just on their experiences, but self-control based on some proven Bible scriptures. I'm not afraid to say that. That's my point. It's worked for me, and it continues to work for me, even though at this time last year it was working well for me. I was 3 months away from having a total liver transplant, which I did have in the University of Cincinnati, and I became available for that in March of that year. And in May, when they transplanted me, I had a very difficult time. I also had some heart problems, which had to have some corrections done prior to that surgery in May. I was in the hospital quite a bit of time during May, and that's when the pandemic was really showing its head, and I woke up completely unconscious with no family members allowed at the hospital because of the pandemic, and was quite alone there for 3 weeks by myself, other than the physicians and the nurses, who were very nice and respectful, but they were all dealing with the same thing. The world has changed overnight. And it's like I went to sleep for the surgery, and I woke up as an alien within that particular day and world. And I'm sure all of us who've lived through the pandemic have had those experiences where nothing seems normal anymore. And I think what I've come to find out is nothing was normal anyway. Normal is not a word to use for everything has to be normal. I think normal can be used to say things are going the way that I like them to go.
Right.
But we don't have that kind of control out in the world, and things come to us, and we have to learn to challenge the challengers and to stand up and to, when I was given my death penalty, I've had cancer, as I said, 7 times. I've had tongue cancer 5 times. They've had to remove my tongue in that area, the basal left area of my tongue, 5 different times. One was 2 months prior to my landmark case with the liver transplant, which is a very in-depth type of transplant. It affects every organ in your body. Prior to that, in the year 2000, I had a phrenic nerve transplant where I'd had a surgery and was anesthetized, but obviously was hyperextended when they tried to get the tube down, and it collapsed my phrenic nerve, which is responsible. You have 2, one on each side of your throat, and they're in charge of making sure that you're breathing. to expand the lung, to stimulate the lung. So the diaphragms, because the paralysis happened in the phrenic nerve, and that's what causes the diaphragm to allow you to move and to inhale and exhale, because the diaphragm became paralyzed as well as the phrenic nerve, I was dying. And it had been 11 months since the procedure had done, and the wonderful doctor that finally I found in New Jersey, Shrewsbury, New Jersey, Dr. Matthew Kaufman, agreed that he would give me a transplant, a phrenic nerve transplant. Even this past week, I had just a small procedure done, and I was talking to the anesthesiologist for that procedure and explained to him what the scar was and how it happened. He said, I've never heard of a doctor operating on the phrenic nerve. Well, come to find out after all my research, that happens sometimes when people have open heart surgery, because the vagus nerve and the frenal nerve run touching each other. And sometimes the phrenic nerve gets cut during open heart surgery, and people end up with constant pneumonias, which is what I was suffering with, constant pneumonias that had no relief, no antibiotics, nothing. It was because I was paralyzed and couldn't breathe. And once one lung became totally paralyzed, I was breathing out of the other lung and only had that limited amount of oxygen, which is enough to carry you through life. But, you know, you don't feel your best unless you have every part working. And so I took that challenge, and actually I'm the first person in the United States that Dr. Matthew Kaufman operated on doing a phrenic nerve transplant. So God brought me through that. And there was a no life. He said after 11, I had been injured for 11 months, and he said after a while, a patient isn't qualified for the surgery because the tissue and everything would be all the way dead, impossible to revive. But he took the sural nerve from my right leg, and he placed it in my phrenic nerve to make the ends meet, and it started to work immediately. And so with the tongue issues, with my tongue being operated on 5 times to remove left area basal left area tongue cancers, they've grown back. My tongue has grown back. The first time they removed the length and width of the doctor's thumb, and it grew back. And I was talking in the recovery room. I didn't realize I was trying to talk, and my mouth was full of bandages. And I thought, oh, they've cut it off, and they've got these bandages in there to help with the bleeding. And I didn't know until within an hour that when they removed that bandage, I could talk, because my response to them removing the bandages from my mouth was to say something and to hear what was left, what would be my new voice, you know, beyond being able to lick an ice cream cone. It was a very serious thing to think you are going to be silent the rest of your life. And I faced that, and that moment I accepted the challenge, and I began to speak as if nothing was wrong. And within 1 year, that entire area had regrown. That was a documented miracle. The doctor had never seen anything like that before. You know, we go to the doctor, dentist perhaps, and we get a nick in our tongue. That grows back pretty swiftly. But to remove the size of a thumb from your tongue is a different situation, and I'm thankful to God that he regrew my tongue. I can still talk pretty well, probably not much better than or worse than I did to begin with. But I've had some joyful challenges, put it like that. They become joyful. They're not initially joyful. The first contact of a test, or the first contact with danger, or the first contact with a new diagnosis, is not the easiest place to begin to assert your predisposition for challenges, but it is essential that when the challenge comes, that you're ready to, you know, lift your sword of faith and let the challenge come, but it's going to hit that. It's going to hit my face no matter what it tries to do. And so I've been able to overcome by keeping my mind on things in the Bible and on my past victories that I didn't win, because God uses doctors, he uses medicine, he uses proton machines, And whatever the task is, he's got us covered if we believe that.
Yes.
We have to believe the first contact with an enemy, a disease, a cancer, whatever, has to be challenged back with the Word of God, which for me, a lot of the favorite phrases that I repeat daily and several times a day, depending on my challenges, God is for me. He is life. And I have his life. And he watches over his word to perform it. No weapon formed against me can prosper unless I allow it. I could have, for example, someone come to the door that intends to do harm to me, but I don't have to let them in. I can resist that with my shield of faith. And I can say the word back of God's word, which he watches over to perform. I don't have to watch over his word. If I speak his word in faith, then he shows up to complete it. It's not in the way I sometimes think it would be completed, but nevertheless, I become a victory person in whatever calamity or situation may come my way. And doesn't mean I don't have responses of pain or grief that other people have, or even of fear, but I try to maintain my soul to keep things in perspective so that I know I do have 10 seconds between any contact made by, let's say, an enemy. I have a 10-second choice what I'm going to say first. And that's what I try to do. I try to maintain my soul so that I'm ready to speak in an instant and give a positive word to my own mind as to what possibly could be going on. But know that my God is with me and that he is ready at hand. And I may not know the answer. I may not pray the right prayer, but at least I'm praying and I'm not crying, which sometimes I have. Sometimes you're just hit in the face and it hurts. So you go through those spells. But I try on a daily basis to keep my soul well maintained, my intellect, my will, and my emotions. And as I said, my weakness is emotions. I tend to get excited or sad, or, I tend to feel things maybe that I think other people might be feeling that are going through difficult times. Maybe I do that a little too much. But my personal history is to talk about my experiences, and when I choose to speak the words of what I call completion, words of completion, not the words of a partial completion or of facts. We see now the news is big to say, to describe what activities are taking place by saying, this is our first report. We'll update you. And so that's the same it is with anything, is there's more to come. Be patient and wait for the more to come. It will reveal the truth. Facts are facts, but facts can change according to the truth that keeps coming out. I did not die I did, but I came back in the liver transplant. I did when I had the tongue surgery because I quit breathing. I have an S-shaped windpipe, so when any anesthesiologist puts a tube down my throat, the tubes are straight. My windpipe is S-shaped. And at that time, I have some kind of a syndrome they call, I don't recall the name of it, but it causes my windpipe to collapse around the air tubes, and that causes death. So I've had those experiences, and every time I have another challenge like that, I have to face it with the truth. I have no control except what I believe, and the Lord pulls me through, and it hasn't been my time to die yet, although I've gotten to the place in my life on occasion where I thought, okay, I'm ready, let's get me out of here. But I think that's the wrong kind of prayer.
Yes.
I'm still here, and I still face challenges just like everyone else. But during all of this, I've learned to allow my mind not to dwell on the challenges as much as dwell on the answer, and then slowly watch the answer appear. Does that make any sense to you, Marcus?
Yeah, absolutely. In the guise of everything that you have talked about, you really have highlighted the importance of just being able to overcome like trauma, overcome like, many trials and tribulations, the closeness to death and the intimates, how you get intimate with that, with like just the power of like
Yes.
faith and spirituality, how like drawing closer to God has like, gotten you through, and, and being able to inspire you to do what you're doing now. And that's write this book. Um, is there anything, that would like point to like, how God kind of directed you to write this book? Like what was the initial step?
Yes. Well, the initial thing was facing cancer. When I had just turned 33, I had to have a complete hysterectomy. So I realized, okay, this was cancer, but where is it now? It's out of the body. So I went through life with other challenges happening and had to learn patience and giving the facts time to develop. It's sort of like when photographers took pictures, they'd go to the red room and
Yes.
you could see them develop. So things develop to a completion. I think we get caught in the beginning, the middle, or even the end at times when completion has reached its potential. If I receive a phone call today that I have a child that was in a wreck, that's an interruption in my day and in my thoughts. But I also know that there's more to the story. Let's just say it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were quick to grab on to the first news or the first doctor's report. I won't be able to eat an ice cream cone again. I won't be able to speak again. How to train my family to be adjusted to that. So it wasn't just my trauma I was dealing with. It was the people around me. And seeing that God brought me through each thing separately and to my benefit. I had long periods in my life that I've been blessed with called downtime. And I had nothing to do except to lay and pray.
Right.
Except to think about, meditate what was good and what was bad, and how this victory came. Even though I had surgery on my tongue, my husband had thought at that time I was going to have a miracle. They were going to do this. We were going to Lexington, Kentucky for Dr. Osentinsky to do the tongue surgery. And I told Mike the night before, I said, I am going under the knife. He is going to do surgery. And Mike said, no, he's going to get there and he's not going to find it. It's going to be gone. Well, I got there and he found it. He already knew where it was, and he ended up surgically removing the thumb area on the left-hand side of my tongue. But the first miracle was in being able to speak to him an hour after the recovery, and then to continue to be able to speak and do things normally for up to a year. And it's grown back 90. I think we're at 98% grown back. But I've had 4 other tongue surgeries in the same spot. That's what's very unusual about me with the tongue cancers. They've been malignant. They've been in the same spot every single time for the last 15 years. But I was 15 years without any tongue cancer after the first surgery until I got ready for the liver cancer surgery.
Yeah.
And they had to go in and remove a cancerous spot at that time. Actually, he removed 2 because one came up in a 2-week period. So not only was I getting ready for a liver transplant, hopefully, because I was in the process of dying, and within probably weeks, 2-3 weeks, I would have already died from the liver disease. But during that time, the tongue cancer came back, and I say that was the best time for it to come back because I was being inspected from head to toe to make sure that we were good on the liver transplant. And then God blessed me with the transplant and with the surgery. And I've had many experiences during this past year. It was a year, May the 13th, 2021. I had the surgery May the 13th, 2020. So it's been a little over a year. And I'm beginning to see and experiencing life at a more normal pace, which for 2 years prior to the liver surgery, I was in devastating health-wise condition, trying to figure out what was going on and what was going to happen. And then I actually used the tongue surgeon to ask his opinion of a good liver doctor. And he said, well, right here at the University of Cincinnati, we have a complete transplant team. And so I was referred to one of those doctors and went and passed all those tests to indicate that I needed a liver transplant. And still there's long waiting periods. You can't just go in and buy a liver and buy a transplant person.
Right.
So you've got to go progress through different stages. And so that's kind of the way I've come to look at life is this may happen today, but the movie isn't over. The story is not complete. And on the way for the completion of whatever that story is going to be, and certainly at the end of one of these stories probably, it will be my time to die. But I want to be ready for that. I want peace in my soul to be a beneficial factor in the lives of my family. I want them to know that I have peace and I've lived out of peace, even during these difficult challenges. And I, like most people, I would think, become fatigued, become down-laden, have thought quickly in my mind, I just can't do this, I'm going to give it up. But I find that I didn't die yet. It didn't kill me yet. I've had all these experiences, and it didn't kill me yet. So, and I had tumors in my liver. We just thought I had liver disease and was dying. And in fact, I had quite a few tumors in my liver. So I've had cancer 10 different times, but it hasn't killed me yet. And my body has certainly responded with healing, because that's what I choose to believe. I choose to believe the ending, the outcome will be good, and not to rehearse everything else over and over and over, which I did do when I first had the cancer with my tongue, the first cancer. I did. I became very depressed and thought, I won't ever be able to talk again, tell my children I love you. It would just be over. I'll be a mute. And there's nothing wrong with that, except it hadn't been my lifestyle. Right. And that would take some adjustment, my family adjustment. And the alternative was death. I would die. I have people that I know, 6 people, in fact, in the city of Grayson, Kentucky, that had tongue cancer when I did, and they have all died except for me. And it's a very grotesque death by strangulation and the swollenness of the tongue, asphyxiation. So I have been blessed not to endure that, but I have learned not just to take one doctor's opinion, but begin researching as much as I can, and then in the process maybe pick up a doctor or two who can further direct me from the point I am to the point we want to get me to, at least by trying and not just, I had a friend not too long ago who's just now passed away from liver disease, and I had, talked with some family members and said she needs another opinion. She needs to go to the University of Cincinnati. They took care of me. I'm alive today, and today she's not alive. But she chose to stay with one doctor's opinion in treatment, which is fine. Everybody has a choice. I just find that if you have more information, you can make a better choice, a better selection based on the amount of information we have, because it's so easy to take a doctor's test results and opinion and then just rely on that. I think there's more to that. I think we all have a scope in our lives that we can look deeper into things and we can see it just beyond the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. And that's what I've tried to do. I try to keep my soul and my intellect. I do a lot of research and study. Mm-hmm. And my will, which is stubborn, but it's stubborn in a good sense for me because it keeps me on track, and my emotions. And if I can keep my intellect, my will, and my emotions intact as much as possible, living in this world which has daily, hourly changes, catastrophic things. People 2 days ago in Louisiana didn't know what was going to be the result at their house from the hurricane. Now they do. They can see that. But they have to go back and pick up and start over. And picking up and starting over is a very difficult thing to do, to encumber in one's life. So I pray for them that they be encouraged and they can see a good completion, not just a devastated completion at this point. And with anybody, anywhere in their life, they can step off the grief. They can put up a wall of faith and believe in the Word of God or not. A lot of people have faith, but not in the Word of God. But we have to maintain our soul with something that is true, something that is true and honest and just and pure and of a lovely report. And if we keep focused on those things as the other things come, it's like, a tick falling off of us. They came to suck life out of you, but I'm going to put as much fight and resistance as I can. And that is to protect my soul.
Well, this has been definitely a very...
And with that, Brian, I'm glad to do this podcast with you because my book, TilBreathUsDoPart /intermission, we all but have an intermission when we're on that journey. It does things, it allows you to see and hear and experience things you don't when you're, quote, normal lifetime, but puts you in a different perspective to see things beyond the scope of what's being presented. You do have to deal with whatever is presented, but there are ways to deal with it that honestly I couldn't have thought of myself. It came from without to within my scope of being able to hope and to believe it. And if it doesn't come to pass the way I believe, something will complete one day and I'll go be with the Lord. So point is, I want my soul to be well maintained no matter what is going on. Whatever connects with me that day or tries to connect with me on a certain day, I'm obligated to my intellect, my will, and my emotions to try to keep the gates up and the lights on and not allow perpetrators to invade my spirit and make me become so grieved and walking in a state of grieving that I'm losing my life, which that option is always there. It's always with you. But you don't have to choose to listen to that or look at that. You can choose to walk away from that and begin saying things of your own will, like not just the doctor's report. Yes, the doctor's report is based on truth from the perspective that they are seeking, but there's more to the other side than what we've believed in previously. And I think in this day and time with COVID, with all the things going on around us and more to come, that if we can keep our mind well maintained, our soul, then we have a great opportunity to overcome many different things and to prove to ourselves once again, have faith in yourself, have faith in your experiences. You can go back and look at the past and say it was awful, or you can go back and say that it was worthy of living from all that you can take away from it. So I'm happy to do this and to encourage people. I think that's why I'm still alive today, is because I have a purpose, a grander purpose than what I have lived before. Thus the book, TilBreathUsDoPart, in intermissions.
Well, thank you so much today, Julie, for stopping by and talking with us. You've definitely been a pleasure, and like you have been truly inspiring, and we hope to hear more from you again. And for those who are listening, you definitely want to make a note of the book title as it become available. Right now, it's not yet published, but once it does, it will be available on all book distributors platforms, it's like Amazon and many others. So it's been a pleasure again, Julie. You have a wonderful day, and ladies and gentlemen out there, make sure you do share this wonderful program with someone you know, someone you don't know, and feel free to rewind back all of the information that you have heard here today, so that you can make full use of it in your own life. Until next time, I'm Marcus. Many blessings, peace, and lots of love.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Global Summit House podcast. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, or Google Play. Connect with us at globalsummithouse.com. See you on the next episode.